Welcome to our Mothers Out Front Massachusetts Climate Action Call. Since we have many new faces here today, let's go ahead and introduce ourselves in the chat. You can share your name, where you're calling in from, and which organization you're with today. I'm Diane Sokol. I'm a member of the Mothers Out Front Brookline chapter, and I also work with a statewide campaign. For those of you who are not familiar with the Mothers Out Front Climate Action Calls, in the next 45 minutes, you will learn about a specific climate issue and we will take focused action together. We're glad to see so many of you here, especially today, the 5th anniversary of the January 6th storming of the Capitol building, and now during a precarious time in Venezuela and many other places around the world. We see the work of Mothers Out Front here in Massachusetts as an important part of holding on to democracy and climate justice. We continue to speak up, even while people in our government are promoting the expansion of fossil fuels and redistributing resources to the wealthy, while millions of residents face skyrocketing costs for food, healthcare, and energy bills. As federal support of climate solutions is disappearing, we look to Massachusetts to take bold climate action and set an example for other states. Today, we will be hearing from Kyle Murray of the Acadia Center about what is causing our high energy costs, and we will write to our state legislators to demand real solutions for energy affordability. So here's a quick preview of the agenda for our climate action call. After a brief introduction, we will hear from our guest speaker, Kyle Murray. There may be time for a few questions for Kyle. You can type any questions that you may have in the chat, and we'll see if we have time to choose a few to be addressed. Then we'll move on to our Mothers Out Front priorities and our action. We've set aside about 15 minutes of this call to take action together. We'll come back together for a few important announcements, and we will end the meeting promptly at 12:45. We do hope you'll stay until the end. Before we get going, I'll quickly go over a few norms for this meeting. Please rename yourself in Zoom to include your name, your city or town, and if you like, an organization you're with. Be sure to mute yourself when we are together in this main room if you are not already muted. It's important with so many on the call that we all remain muted today. Use the chat to share any questions or comments during the call. Closed captioning is available, and you should be able to access that tool at the bottom of the screen. And finally, we are recording this climate action call. If you do not want to be seen in the recording, please use the Zoom controls to turn off your video. And I will now turn the presentation over to Ann Wright of the Arlington chapter of Mothers Out Front and a leader on our statewide campaign teams for many years. And unmute yourself, please.
Sorry. We are pleased today to be joined by our guest speaker, Kyle Murray from the Acadia Center. For those not familiar with this important organization, Acadia Center is a nonprofit focused on carbon reductions in the Northeast U.S. with a mission to advance bold, effective, clean energy solutions for a livable climate and a stronger, more equitable economy. Kyle Murray is an expert on the energy transition and is Acadia Center's Director of State Program Implementation. He leads Acadia Center's Massachusetts advocacy efforts, including coalitions, outreach, and agency work at the Department of Public Utilities. He serves as the environmental community's representative on the Massachusetts Grid Modernization Advisory Council and represents Acadia Center on the Zero Emission Vehicle Commission. Kyle also co-leads the Alliance for Clean Energy Solutions Coalition and leads the Beyond Gas Coalition. Thank you, Kyle, for joining us today. I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Anne, and thank all of you for having me today. I'm really, really happy to talk about this subject. As you might imagine, this has been kind of the biggest thing we've been talking about over the past couple of years is energy costs and energy affordability. And, you know, I am kind of here to talk a little bit about what's causing that. Next slide, please. you can see about Acadia Center on this slide. One of the things I always say that distinguishes us from a lot of other climate nonprofits is that we are kind of the data wonks. Like, we have data people on staff, so we really dig into the info. And I really think that helps our advocacy because we're coming through it with numbers a lot of times. Like, a lot of people make the gut case on a lot of things, and we're just saying, no, these are what the numbers say, and you can believe me or not, that's what they say. So, next slide, please. And our investigation into this issue has basically said, there's four culprits when you look at what is driving high energy costs in Massachusetts. And contrary to people who think it's the Mass Save program or renewables or all the green stuff, turns out that stuff actually helps reduce costs in the long term, particularly at those peak hours when prices really skyrocket out of control. But what's really causing it is rising gas supply costs, rising gas infrastructure costs, rising electric infrastructure costs, and utility profit models. And this is the gas stuff is very important because Massachusetts gets over 50% of its electricity and heating from natural gas. So seems only simple to me to be like, what's probably the culprit for high energy costs? Well, it's probably the fuel we rely on the most, which is natural gas. And the numbers tend to bear that out. Next slide, please. And yeah, so a primary driver of electricity prices in the region is the price of natural gas. And gas commodity prices are extremely volatile. They spike during extreme events, are tied to international markets, and are forecasted to increase in the coming years. Recent projections from the EIA expect a 33% increase in 2026 natural gas prices, so continuing to go up. And the major reason for this is the continued increase in exports on liquid natural gas. It's a international commodity, so we are subject to what happens in that market, and this is not a great thing for us. Gas and its volatility are the major reason why New England has spent between $9.5 and $17 billion on wholesale electricity costs per year in the last 4 years. And based upon Acadia Center's analysis, states with a higher natural gas penetration, those states that have higher, supplies of natural gas, as their dominant fuel share, have observed a trend of higher electricity prices nationally. And that is a trend that is statistically significant in the Northeast region. Conversely, we have seen states that have had higher renewables penetration see, reduced costs or lower cost increase. Next slide, please. On gas infrastructure, contrary to what you hear a lot when people talk about, oh, we need a new pipeline, gas has actually increased. We have actually increased gas supply in the region, and we have not seen a corresponding decline or, any sort of reduction in costs. New England has actually expanded interstate gas transmission capacity by over 30% since 2010. And those increased transmission costs are passed on to ratepayers through utility contracts. And we haven't seen a drop in supply costs. So, increasing natural gas, increasing costs for ratepayers. Also, gas distribution pipes are rapidly being replaced in the name of safety. But replacement programs have not led to commensurate decreases in leaks or in significant incidents due to corrosion or materials failure. Since 2014, gas utilities have spent $6.2 billion on new gas programs, new gas pipes through the Gas System Enhancement Program. And GSEP spending has increased by an average of 12% every year since 2015, from $291 million to a proposed $880 million in 2025. Estimates from the Future of Gas proceeding and other GSEP experts forecast that overall GSEP costs would equal between $23,500 to $31,000 per customer over the life of the program. Next slide, please. Um, Additionally, we have an extremely old and out of date grid that was not built for the current energy environment. It was built for, we have a big power plant that sends power out to the grid and then out to your home. But what we have now is increasingly distributed grid with, a house that has solar sending power back into the grid. And really our current grid is just not built to handle that. Much of the grid needs to be replaced, and we also need to expand due to increasing electric load. However, it is not as much as the utilities would want you to believe, because there are a number of things we can do to actually minimize that spend, including grid enhancing technologies, virtual power plants, and non-wire solutions. Increasingly, climate is a major problem here, as we are seeing increased storm intensity, which is causing increasing storm damage, being a major driver of costs on electric infrastructure. Next slide, please. Utility profits are also just a huge problem here. In regulated investor-owned utility markets, profits are tied to the size of the rate base, which consists of physical assets used to deliver electricity, think poles, wires, etc. And utilities earn a regulated rate of return on these assets. So expanding the rate base through capital projects such as grid upgrades, storm hardening, or infrastructure replacements directly increases their earnings. So utilities really want to build. They want to build. They don't actually care how much energy they sell you. What they do care is how many pipes they get to build, how many poles and wires they get to build, because that's really how they make their money. And the interesting statistic is investor-owned utilities, that's privately owned utilities, have seen rates increased 49% more than inflation, and publicly owned counterparts have increased 44% less than inflation. What's the difference? Those publicly owned ones don't have an incentive to just build constantly. So that's why we're seeing lower costs in those areas. Next slide, please. I also wanted to talk very quickly about some concerns about House Bill 4744, which is the House's energy affordability bill. There's too many to cover here, but some of the major concerns is it's really gutting mass save, including reducing $330 million from the planned budget, removing things like decarbonization, beneficial electrification, and making the greenhouse gas targets merely advisory. The bill would also eliminate the new moderate income discount rate and reduce the renewable portfolio standard, which is what requires us to get more and more energy from renewables every year, reduces that from 3% to 1%. It also revives the so-called pipeline tax, which would allow electric customers to cover costs for a new pipeline into the region. And it also asks the utilities to do an assessment, a bill impact assessment on costs from programs associated with greenhouse gas reductions, clean energy, solar, workforce development, or electrification. So basically, everything good, clean, and green, we're asking the utilities to say, hey, tell us how much that costs us. All the stuff you don't like that you don't directly control, tell us how much that costs. So to me, does not seem like a very great idea here. So what can you do? Call your elected officials and urge them to advocate for policies that prioritize clean energy, energy efficiency, and the phase out of natural gas. And make it clear that you will not accept backsliding, and ask them to contact House leadership and House Ways and Means. On this, I would really recommend calling your representatives. I used to work in the State House. Writing an email is helpful, but the more volume of calls a legislator's office gets, and the more unique calls they get that don't seem like people are using a script, that really helps. That really pushes them. Because I can tell you as a staffer, when you get 40 calls in a day, you tell your boss, oh my God, everybody's really mad about this thing. So, and that is it for me. You can go to my final slide. That's my email. And if you have any questions, I'm always happy to chat. everything energy and talk for far too long about it. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Kyle. That was really, really great, very helpful. Um, and thank you for your work and for sharing your insights with us. We'll take questions if there's time after I present our priorities, which align so well with what Kyle's just told us. So keep putting questions in the chat and we'll choose a few that we can answer right now and hopefully later get some answers. So hello, everyone. I'm Andrea Rose, coordinator of Mothers Out Front's legislation and regulation team. So as Kyle told us, the Massachusetts House put forward what they called an energy affordability package, H4744. And it rolls back years of climate policies that we've fought for and our state's clean energy goals. The immediate outcry from constituents and the unity of voices among advocate organizations paused this fast-tracked bill back in November. This critical bill is being worked on in the House Ways and Means Committee right now. The previous version had many parts that would actually raise costs, as Kyle outlined. Now we need to pass truly transformative policies that build a clean, affordable future. So our priorities, which are going to be in a document that you'll be able to link to in your message to your representative, are based on those developed by Mass Power Forward, a climate coalition integral to Mothers Out Front's work. And we'll be asking our representatives to talk to the leadership about these in our action today. Number one, cut spending on gas system expansion. Two, strengthen Mass Save to reduce costs for ratepayers. And three, expand clean, affordable energy while protecting wildlands. And I'll go into each of these solutions next. We do need to lower energy costs. From summer 2024 to summer 2025, the price of natural gas went up 83%. But it is the high return on capital investments, as Kyle told us, that drives up costs most. And a large part of our rising gas delivery rates are due to the Gas System Enhancement Plan, which we call GSEP. Instead of affordable repairs to leaky pipes, the gas companies replace the pipes to make more money. So the House Energy Bill 4744 would continue investment in volatile fossil fuel markets. We support several bills that would require a planned transition to renewables and stop expanding the expensive gas pipeline system. That would minimize gas pipeline replacement and prevent approval of new and expanded large gas pipelines and power plants in environmental justice communities, which adds to all of our gas costs. And to hold utilities accountable and prohibit their use of ratepayer funds for lobbying, advertising, and company perks. These are just some of the legislative solutions that would limit gas expansion that are in our priorities. So, Mass Save's successful track record is undeniable. Every dollar invested in Mass Save energy efficiency programs yields $3.51 in lifetime benefits. H4744 proposes cutting $330 million from Mass Save, which is in addition to the $500 million that the governor cut. The bill would result in over $2 billion in total lost savings and would impose an arbitrary caps on future budgets, as Kyle mentioned. So this will drive up total energy system costs and force ratepayers to use more energy and pay more for supply, transmission, and distribution. So we want to adequately fund Mass Save and strengthen the focus on low and moderate income households, small businesses. Some of these measures were included in the governor's energy affordability bill, which we're hoping the Ways and Means Committee will be looking at as they rewrite 4744. We also want to keep and strengthen the Mass Save focus on decarbonization and climate benefits. The governor's bill has sections on this, and we also support a bill that would establish a zero carbon assessment as the default energy audit. So now we know gas supply costs are going up, and clean energy drives down electricity costs long term. And with renewable resources, we are also freeing ourselves from dependency on fossil fuels. So 4744 was written to roll back our climate commitments. We want to keep our 2030 climate commitments, including the renewable portfolio standard increases that Kyle mentioned, which increase the proportion of electricity from renewables on the grid. Our solutions are to eliminate municipal caps on solar development, site clean energy facilities responsibly, including protecting wildlands, and municipal light plant subsidies for toxic biomass, and accelerate connection of distributed energy resources to bring more lower cost clean energy online. Back to you, Anne.
Thank you, Andra, for all this important analysis of Mothers Out Front priorities. We have just a couple minutes for some questions from the chat. A lot of the questions and comments I've noticed have been very ably answered in the chat, so I encourage people to read that. A lot of people seem to want to know what's going on in the House in reaction to the Cusack bill. I'm wondering, Kyle, if you could say a little bit more about that. That might be helpful for us.
Yeah, basically, a lot of people have wondered, like, why is this regressive bill coming up? Massachusetts has always been a climate leader. And the answer is we had a really cold winter last year and everyone's energy bills were really high. And so they called their legislators and they complained. And so legislators heard loudly, we need to do something. And unfortunately, I think climate orgs, myself, others included, we were too slow to be proactive with our messaging last year. And so the messaging took hold, basically. You know what's causing your high costs? Mass save, renewables, clean, green, all of that stuff. And, the opposition is well funded, and those fossil fuel companies and utilities really love to blame those things. So that message has taken hold in the House, which has always been a bit more on the conservative side, a bit more leans towards utilities taking their word for things. And you have a new House Energy Chair this year in Cusack, who is not coming in from a background of having a ton of energy expertise. So easier for those arguments to take hold than someone like Barrett, who in the Senate, who's been doing this for years and years and years and years. So yeah, that's the basics.
And so we'll get to the action in a minute, but there are particular targets for our calls that we will show in our action toolkit in just a minute. Do I have one more minute for questions, or should we move on to the action? Okay, we'll move on to the action. So next slide.
Okay, so I'm Max Hunter. I am working with the Boston West chapter of Mothers Out Front and also with the legislative team. So we have a short window to influence the House bill, and we need our representatives to speak up before the bill is finalized. So today we are asking all of you to send your own letter to your state representative with links to our priorities for the House energy bill. The framework for our priorities was developed by the Mass Power Forward Coalition. We provide instructions in the toolkit for the body of your email and how to personalize the text a bit. It will be easy. We ask that you share this action with your friends across Massachusetts. The more reps hear from constituents, the more pressure the House leadership will feel. We know they are hearing from our opponents, so we need to be as loud as we can be. You can share out the link now, or you could wait and forward the follow-up email with the recording and the slide deck that you'll get later today. Okay, so when Deb is going to put the action for the toolkit in the chat, and you can click on the link in the chat to open up the toolkit. And this is what it will look like. So first you'll read the little background paragraph on the left, and then you'll open up a new email message and copy the sample text into your email. If your representative is on the Ways and Means Committee that is rewriting the bill, you'll want to use different instructions linked in the toolkit. Then you can add your own personal details to the sample language. Remember to share this action with your friends. In the resource sections at the bottom, there are articles and background information to learn more. And I would just add that one benefit of sending these letters to our representatives is that they get to learn more. So calls are terrific, but for a lot of these representatives, they need the facts, and our letters are going to provide those facts. So, Deb, can you put the link to our toolkit in the chat again? And we're going to have about 10 or 15 minutes to write this letter.
Great, thank you, Max. Deb will drop that link for the toolkit in the chat one more time, and we're all going to be quiet for the next few minutes so we can take this action together. If you have any questions, technical questions, you can drop them in the chat. If you're really struggling with the tech, don't worry. You'll get all these instructions by email, hopefully this afternoon. But if possible, get your emails done right now, and we'll see you back here around 12:40. Taking action today is a great number of people on this call. So we're at the end of the action time, and you can finish up later if you need more time. Every month that we do these calls, we join together with more of our allies. Our voices get louder together, more decision makers hear us, and then they take action to tip the scales in favor of real climate solutions. That is the power of our movement. Later today, you will receive a follow-up email. It will have links to a recording of this call, the slides, and also the toolkit we shared today. So we encourage you to forward that email to your networks all across the state. Tell your friends and neighbors about what you learned today and how they can take action also. And we have announcements of 2 events coming up in the next month. Mothers Out Front hosts a welcome call the second Friday of every month at noon, and we have one coming up later this week, Friday, January 9th at noontime. If you've ever asked yourself, what more could I be doing to stop climate change? Then you should join us on this call. We will work to help you identify the U-shaped hole in this movement. We want to help you find ways you can use your unique talents, your skills, and your experiences to build a stronger, more effective, and more inclusive movement for change. So join us and bring a friend. Deb will put the RSVP link in the chat. And finally, we want this climate action call to be on your calendar every month. Our next climate action call will be on Tuesday, February 3rd at 12 noon. You won't want to miss it. And Deb will drop that link into the chat also. So many thanks to all of you for this great big crowd for joining us today, and especially to Kyle Murray from Acadia Center for sharing his time and all of his technical background and his insights with us. So stay warm, stay healthy, and we look forward to seeing you again in February.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Kyle.
Thanks,
Thank you
Kyle.
all.